As James Goodman says, hi there, racing fans, and welcome to another edition, an exciting edition of Winning Ways. But it's not James Goodman and Paul Lafferty today on today's show. It's myself, Warren Inferna, and Andrew Harrison. A very good morning to you, Andrew.
How are you, Warren?
I'm well, thank you. And James and Paul have gone up to Gauteng for the National Yearling Sales, and we're the reserve team.
I don't know. I think we're the pros.
Yeah, we were saying a little moment off air, we feel like we're the fourth or fifth reserve.
But that's all right.
I tend to agree with you. I think we're the pros, though, not the fourth or fifth reserve.
Well, we'll show them tonight.
A lot of rain around the province, and you were at Scottsville yesterday, and we'll touch on that a bit later, but a lot of rain which is needed.
Scottsville was wet, very wet.
Yeah, it certainly was. Let's talk a little bit about sports. The viewers know that I don't know too much about sports, but I did do a little bit of homework. And what I am happy to say is, not happy to say, but happy to join the bandwagon. Sharks,
The
absolutely
Sharks
shocking.
were diabolical, absolutely diabolical. Every player played for himself. They didn't play as a team. They dropped the ball. They couldn't tackle. They were just useless.
And they played the Reds, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Manchester United, they played Everton 4-0. They also got a thumping.
Yeah, well, Shazy will be crying into his soup this morning.
Yeah, well, I see he was up in the Drakensberg for the Easter weekend, and they were having a lovely lunch.
Well, I hope he didn't jump off the Drakensberg Falls after that result. Yeah.
So Manchester United, Everton 4-0. So that was
It was a bit of a shock result.
And I believe, Andrew, the Manchester derby starts next week, Wednesday, or
Yeah,
this Wednesday.
City it's your Manchester United against the noisy neighbours, as Sir Alex Ferguson used to call them. But I think the way United are playing and the way City are playing, I think the game is a foregone conclusion. Liverpool will be shouting for United, which will be unusual, so that they can stay top of the league. Liverpool, they got home 2-0. It was 0-0 at half-time. They got home 2-0. I listened to the blokes at a half-time saying Liverpool were rubbish. So they must have picked up the game. Mr. Klopp must have given them a go. And then, luckily for United, I think Arsenal got beaten too, 3-2 by Crystal Palace.
Okay, so some woeful results, as you said. But and the golf, that's probably old news now. But Tiger Woods, that I do watch a little bit of golf and play a little bit of golf when I try at least. And Tiger Woods was scintillating.
No, he was back to his best, yeah.
Okay, well, that's the sports front, and so there'll be a couple of unhappy sports fans around the place, but be that as it may. Let's move on then directly and go into our three to follow. We've got some interesting horses for you to have a look at. Okay, the first of the three to follow is an exciting horse, and we've got some nice feedback on this son of Frankel. And this is a horse called General Franco. It was at Kenilworth. This is from the Justin Snaith stable. It was at Kenilworth on Tuesday the 16th. And the Snaith team sent out an expensive Frankel that looks to be the real deal. Let's go and have a look at this. Okay, Andrew, we can see General Franco in the highlighted part. And I thought jumped very well into the race. But sort of seemed to have lost it halfway into the race.
No, I don't think so. I think Richard Fourie just let him settle, find his stride, and just track the pace.
I've spoken to Justin Snaith since this race, and the report from Richard was exactly that. You know, he found his feet, and Richard said he was a little worried at one stage because he was starting to. You know,
if you look at him now,
green and not really quickened, but he said when he chased the horse, all of a sudden the response was instantaneous.
Yeah, you just look at him now, quickening up on the outside with the white cap. He's just lengthened his stride and he's just put the race to bed in a matter of a furlong.
Yeah, he's beautifully bred, as I said.
Lovely stride on him.
Yeah, lovely stride, beautiful action, and as you can see him on your monitors, they're absolutely annihilating the opposition.
And I think he'll go a bit further than this. So the Guineas. The Guineas will be a good race.
Absolutely, and this is, as I said, by Frankel, out of the mare called Pale Moon Rising, for Mrs. Hossack and Jack Mitchell. This was a Klavervlei stud-bred horse, and we also wish Jack Mitchell a speedy recovery. He hasn't been very well of late.
I hear so, yeah.
Correct. So, General Franco, and talking to Justin here at Greyville the other day, he was short and sweet and transparent as the Snaith stable always are. He said, this is a proper horse. They're probably going to give him one more run down in the Cape, and give him a bit of a rest, but he's an exciting prospect for the future.
I think so. He's got a classic pedigree, so next year's Guineas definitely must be on the agenda if all going well.
Okay, so we believe General Franco is certainly something proper and something to follow. Our second rerun was a horse that we found at the Vaal on Thursday the 18th from the Sean Terry stable, a horse called Succession. Again, take a look at your monitors and have a look at this race.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to follow. He's the horse with a white spot on his nose. You'll be able to follow him quite easily in this race.
Jumped well,
enough. Showed good pace throughout, I thought.
Yeah, there he is in the middle of, as Andrew says, with a little white spot on his face or on his nose at the middle of the track, and shows lovely natural pace. And you'll see in the closing stages of the race at a different camera angle, beautiful stride does the son of Captain L have.
Yeah, I think he's a nice horse, and I think he will improve lengths on this run. As he gets towards the end, he starts to tire a bit. The winner goes wishing past, but he stayed on nicely, but he did get tired at the last 200.
He's very well, as I said, he's very well bred, and they backed this horse, Andrew, on debut. I don't like the term like they knew the result, because nobody knows the result, but this horse was very, very well backed and found bedding support. And there you can see Brian Reed's horse that they've always quietly rated and has had solid form, the son of Magog, one of our own. I think the experience just told here, and one of our own streaked away from the opposition.
So you'll see now that Succession has just sort of lost his stride a little bit. I think he got tired, so I think he's definitely one to follow. He'll tighten up lengths on that run.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. So that was number 13, Succession, from the Sean Terry stable. Our third and final rerun is a horse that won at Scottsville yesterday. And I've watched the race naturally on TV, and Andrew, you saw this race live. You were at Scottsville. I wasn't, unfortunately. But this is Miss Florida, the first of the two winners for Justin Snaith. And she's a daughter of Captain L out of a trippy mare, Diva's daughter, beautifully bred, owned and bred by Nick Johnson. And so that's a wonderful achievement. Had the barrier trial, won the barrier trial. It just shows you there's a lot of debate around the barrier trials. Some of them, don't run to form in the barrier trial, but in this case, the barrier trial seemed to have worked.
So the barrier trials, some trainers use them as a proper gallop. Other trainers just let the horses run, just need a barrier trial to race proper. So sure. It all depends. Some trainers you've got to follow the trainers. Some of them love it, others don't.
Okay, so that's Miss Florida. Let's have a look. Take a look at your monitors. It was on a very, very wet Scottsville track. Drawn right up the inside, Andrew. And if you want to be overcritical, jumped a little slow, slightly sideways, but into the race in a matter of time.
Into the race straight away. She showed good pace throughout, and the track was a bit sticky. It got worse later on when the rain really came down. But at this stage of the game, the going was pretty good, even though it looks like it's kicking up a bit, but it was good going.
Yeah, you can see that Miss Florida, she's got ears pricked, she's a bit green, but which is expected despite having the barrier trial. And she really showed, there you can see Richard Ferree getting animated and punching her out and telling her let's go and put the race to bed. But I thought a very impressive winner. The second horse is not going down without a fight, but eventually Miss Florida.
Miss Florida's pretty green. I think she's now had a look at the course. I think Justin may be thinking Alan Robinson in a couple of weeks' time.
Interesting to note that Justin Snaith has been on record to say that he doesn't normally bring 2-year-olds to KZN for the season. And when he sat down with his team and he said, no, let's take some 2-year-olds up, and already they're seeing the rewards.
Yeah, I think so. And also this summer, we've had quite a lot of rain, so the grass tracks are holding up nicely and a little bit softer than anywhere else.
Okay, well, those are our three to follow, and but I think you're happy to say out of the three, the most exciting could be...
No, General Franco, definitely. I think
he
looks like a smart horse.
All right, well, let's go and have a look at where are they now.
Hi, Paul and James. Nice to be on your show again. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Herman Brown, former trainer in Durban. Trained here for roughly 20 years and spent 10 years overseas training. Been back here for a while now. Been out of the game for 6 or 7 years, but still watch it with interest. And I've got a share in a few horses that are due to run shortly, so probably see me at the races in the near future. And keep up the good work with your show, and happy Easter. Hope to see you soon.
If you've been involved in horse racing in South Africa but have either moved away, immigrated or retired, we want to hear from you. Send us a short 30-second video recording on WhatsApp and we'll flight it on the show. Clips can be sent to either James on 071 588 5769 or Paul on 083 779 1311. We look forward to hearing from you.
Well, there we go. That's Herman Brown Jr. and Bamboo Brown, as he's affectionately known by his friends. Andrew, I think it's a wonderful insert that James and Paul have brought into the show. Where are you now? Because there's so many people in racing that disappear. We don't know where they are.
Yeah, especially jockeys. You know, they suddenly disappear and you don't know where they are. You find them in Singapore and Australia and around the world, and you think, well, okay, that's great. Those jocks are doing well.
Let's talk a little bit about Herman Brown, about Bamboo Brown. As we said, his father, of course, Herman Senior, top horseman. I mean, they've had some really proper horses go through their hands.
He learned well from his old man. Herman Senior was a top trainer, very shrewd old man. He could spy a gallop from a long way, and train some top horses.
But
Herman trained some top horses. Eldoriza, I remember, is one.
Absolutely. Wasn't Eldoriza Kit Colt's horse? Am I correct?
I can't remember.
Etienne van der
Westhuizen. Could be.
But nevertheless, that would be nice to see. Maybe we should ask James and Paul to find out where Etienne is Kit Colt. I think he... I've seen him at the races.
He's still wandering around Umhlanga.
Yeah, I think they all go and enjoy themselves in Umhlanga, absolutely. But interesting to hear Herman say that he's still got a few shares in some horses, and the horses are going to be racing soon, and we're going to follow those horses with great interest. But the interesting part is, once that bug's bit, Andrew, the racing bug, you've battled to get rid of it.
Yeah, I know. You just have to hang in there. A lot of people have gone out, decided not for them, and then a couple of years later they're back in town.
Okay, all right, so that's where are they now. Let's move along and go and have a look at the plum of the week.
Of that one is Folk Dance. 400 metres to go and Kilmokia still leads it. Mayabi Gold, Folk Dance is trying to put in a claim. Down the inside, Jamra's running on. Kilmokia, Mayabi Gold's now coming forward strongly. Jamra's down the inside, and then Sabina's Dynasty. But Mayabi Gold hit the front and is going on. And it's Mayabi Gold. Sabina's Dynasty's trying to come late, but Mayabi Gold will win. Second will go to Sabina's Dynasty. Third place to Folk Dance, and then Jamra.
That was the second of the Justin Snaith winners at Scottsville yesterday, and as you saw, Mayabi Gold. Before we talk about the odds, Andrew, she's a daughter of Silvana out of a Western Winter mare, again beautifully bred, and she looks decent horse.
Yeah, she does look decent. And the mare, Makushi Gold, I think it is.
Makushi Gold,
yeah,
correct.
trained by Alistair Gordon.
Okay.
She was pretty useful in her time, so she is very well bred, yeah.
And Mayabi Gold won well, I thought, although Richard gave her a nice solid ride.
I must say, I missed her in the race card. I didn't tip her in the first three.
I saw that, I noticed that. I was following you while I was at home yesterday.
Yeah, I was crying into my wet ticket afterwards because I don't know how I missed her, because she's obviously class. I mean, she won, I'm trying to think the race she won at the end of the last season, but she went to Cape Town, she took on all the big guns in Cape Town. She wasn't disgraced, and I think Justin explained afterwards that she had a bit of bad luck in one of those races, drawn wide. So, yeah, so I missed her.
Okay, and starting at odds of around 5-2, Mayabi Gold, so there was plenty value about, and she duty arrived.
Yeah, she 5-2, judged on her previous form, was pretty good odds.
Okay, so that is the plum of the week, Mayabi Gold, and we feel that, as Justin said, that on his interviews yesterday, and that his horses are here for serious business, and he's getting their first runs under the belt, but so far I would be very happy with the way things are going.
Yeah, I think so. Strathton ran a good race. He said in the lead up to champion season, he said that's his stayer for the season, and that was a good start. 61.5 in that mud. But mind you, Silver Rose, I think the winner,
yes,
led all the way. Great ride by Gareth Wright, I thought.
How well is Gareth Wright doing? Really, very, very well, and well done to him.
Yeah, they're throwing him bones now. He's working for Robbie Hill, and he's ridden for Byron Foster, Andre Nell. So, yeah, he's taking full advantage. I see he's riding 52 now.
So he's got his weight down.
He's got his weight right down, yeah.
Okay, well, that was our plum of the week, Mayabi Gold. We'll come back to you with current affairs.
My name is Mark van Devent. I'm a fanatic horse player, absolutely passionate about racing because of the excitement of the puzzle and all the effort that goes into solving it. But it's a great spectacle too. The horses going into the pens before the start of the race, the build-up of tension, and then finding out which horse has it in them to come down in the final stages with just 100 meters left when they're gunning for the line, neck and neck. You never know really what's going to happen in the sport. That's part of the fascination of horse racing. But with Interbet, I know not only do I still get the best odds on their site, and it's also the most informative and user-friendly place for me to bet online. Interbet were the pioneers of online and Mobi betting in South Africa, and they will continue to innovate and lead the way. Interbet, where the professionals bet.
Welcome back to the Winning Ways studio, and we're now moving on to our next segment, which is current affairs. And we've got some interesting topics to talk about in current affairs, Andrew and I. So, Andrew, current affairs, always nice I enjoy this segment because it's nice to chat about the news and things that are going on. And Champion season's on the way. We've got a couple of things to talk about. We want to touch on champion season. We want to touch on this track at Scottsville yesterday. We want to inform the people about the sledgehammer postponement, which most will know about already, but we just want to finalise that. Of course, the national yearling sales are on the way. There's golf days coming up. So there's plenty of things to talk about, and I'm also going to rack your brains about a couple of things that are happening in the Gold Circle media department as well in current affairs. Okay, let's start off with champion season. The champion season is the launch, or the opening, we should say, is the night of the Drill Hall Stakes, the Guineas, the Fillies Guineas. And we've both looked at those nominations, and goodness gracious me, there's some proper horses in there.
No, yeah, but the build-up to champion season has been quite good too. Even these small listed features and grade threes. Like yesterday, I was looking forward to seeing Made to Conquer, yes, and Platinum Prince and Silvano's Bullet.
Silver's Bullet, yeah,
eyes wide open. So I'm glad they've postponed that race to next Sunday. Yeah. I think Justin was a little bit disappointed because he likes Platinum Prince, he likes the wet. So he was keen for them to race yesterday. But yeah, so champion season's on the horizon.
Nice to have Rainbow Bridge in town. Eric Sands has brought up Rainbow Bridge, just the one horse for champion season, and now races for Mr. and Mrs. Rattray. And always nice to welcome all the visitors into town. A lot of people, well, obviously it's champion season, but a lot of people don't like the competition, don't like... I think it's great. It's healthy. It keeps people on their toes. This is the culmination of the whole season. You get all the best horses in Durban. The weather's usually good. Yes.
But it always rains at Easter because it's Splashy Fen. I don't call it Splashy Fen for nothing. And so it's ready for the season.
Okay. The track at Scottsville, Andrew, I just want to ask you about the track. You were there yesterday.
The track down the straight. The track down the straight was great. No one had any hassles. None of the jockeys didn't complain about the straight. But when they went round the turn, they've always had issues with that track when it's had been wet. And just before they started going around the turn, it was heavy rain, and they chopped up the inside, and then the jockeys came in and complained about the thing. So then Warren Kennedy said, "Well, we'll try and keep off the rail." Garth Puller was on the board there. He said, "Listen, we'll stay off the rail then. It hasn't been chopped up on the outside." But some of the jocks disobeyed the rules, went on the inside, and then after that it was just too wet.
Okay, then Andrew, what's also interesting is in current affairs, and we'll go into your call as well, they've got a lovely insert on Jim Bolger. Am I pronouncing it? Bolger. Okay, Jim Bolger, top Irish trainer. So that's going to be a very, very interesting insert to watch. Do you know much about him?
Jim Bolger's a legend in Ireland. He's up there with the old Vincent O'Brien. I think he trained there with Vincent O'Brien. I'm trying to think of the other top Irish trainers there. And I think Aidan O'Brien, no relation to Vincent, learnt his trade under James Bolger.
Okay, so top Irish trainer. So that's going to be a great and interesting insert for sure that we'll watch, and we look forward to that with great interest. And James and Paul, as we said, along with many other racing fans, are up at the National Yearling Sale, which I'm departing tomorrow morning for. And it's always a good time of the racing calendar. And we just, all that's left is to wish all the breeders, owners, and everyone concerned a successful sale. Yeah,
well, I've paged the catalogue. I think there's a lot of horses with solid pedigrees. And it's also one of those sales, the whole racing community sort of get together, all the trainers and the owners, and they have, it's more a fun thing as well as the serious part of buying horses. Yeah.
Correct. Well, Andrew, thanks very much for coming into the studio, and On behalf of Paul and James, I'll thank myself too. Thanks to the both of us, and they gave us a ring. We're always happy to help and come and have some fun, and really just we enjoy the Winning Ways show. And happy Easter to all the viewers for the past Easter weekend. And travel back to Ashburton safely, and thanks very much. And Paul and James will be back next week.
Yeah, I see all the volleys on their way back. It's bumper to bumper going north.
Okay, well that's why I chose to travel to Gauteng tomorrow and not today. But that's a wrap from the Winning Ways show. Yes, we're part of the team, the Winning Ways team. Travel safely, punt well. Paul and James will be back with you next week.
Jim Bolger isn't just a classic winning trainer. He's a classic winning owner, a classic winning breeder. Indeed, he's a classic winning owner-breeder trainer. He's a somewhat mystical figure, a deeply religious man who in the racing world could be considered godlike.
Saint-Germain's going to storm away with the Irish Derby. Saint-Germain was second and Epsom is putting 6, 7, 8, 10 lengths between him and Dr. Nebius and contested mid and up the line. Saint-Germain has won it. Dr. Nebius is second.
Alexandra Gold run in front. Bullish Luck driving hard. They come to the wire. Bullish Luck drives, missed. Alexandra Gold run held on to win by a head.
And Teofilo's a couple of lengths in front. Holy Roman Emperor has a battle on. He's got 2.5 lengths to make up. Teofilo's going to keep his unbeaten record in tremendous style for Kevin Manning and Jim Bolger. New approach, multi-dimensional Moores Wells Traffic Guard putting in an effort on the outside, but it's New Approach from Traffic Guard as they race up towards the finish. It's New Approach, and Kevin Manning is going to win the Tattersalls Millions Champion Stakes.
Jim, should I be nervous about this interview?
I don't know of any reason why you should be worried, or even concerned, or even apprehensive.
I'm slightly concerned because didn't the BBC once come here and you were explaining about your first winner at Roscommon, and then you suggested that you celebrated that winner by going and getting absolutely smashed and also popping into a cop shop and chucking a few things in before doing a runner?
Well, that was a joke, and it was taken as being a little bit serious, so it was just one of those things.
But that's the thing with you, Jim Bolger. You're never quite sure what you're going to come out with.
Well, he should have known anyway that I never had an empty bottle in my hand in my life. So if he asked a question like that, it was his problem.
Let's try and find a little bit more about you. No drink. Is that fair?
No alcoholic drink.
No alcoholic drink. Yeah. A lot of going to Mass?
I'm a card-carrying Catholic, and I go to Mass regularly, and definitely every Sunday.
Are you a hard taskmaster? There are all sorts of stories out there in the big wide world, Jim, about what may or may not have happened, perhaps more in the past than now. Let's just say a member of the staff hears you coming along. Would they grab the shovel straight away for fear that they weren't working?
We don't use shovels very much, but I wouldn't see any reason why they would. You know, I'd expect them to have the tool before I get there in the first place. So if they were leaving it until they heard me come, that's their problem.
We've established no drink, but no smoking as well. A lad is caught by you smoking or drinking. The repercussions of that are what?
Well, I wouldn't catch them drinking anyway, because that definitely wouldn't happen. I haven't seen anybody smoking about the place since 1983. It's been a smoke-free zone since then. When we moved here at the back end of '82, I had about 6 smokers on the staff. So I told them in April that any of them that were clean at Christmas, I'd give them 500 quid each. So I had to pay 4 of them, and the other 2 left. And we've been smoke-free since then. And more than that, a few of those are still with me, and they are very grateful that I encouraged them to give up the cigarettes. And they're now the parents of 3 or 4, and are very happy to be non-smokers.
So the theory has worked with them. What about Sunday mornings? In the past, did you line staff up and take them down to mass yourself?
No, that's a myth. I have an idea who, I think it was Paul Carberry started that first. I used to go to mass, always go to mass for Lent, the 40 days of Lent. And I was going down one morning and I knew one of my staff, his father was dying with cancer. And I thought to myself, well, maybe he'd like to go to mass to say a prayer for his dad. So I put a notice up in the tack room the next morning that anybody who wanted to go to mass for Lent was very welcome to do it. And I'd arranged to have a skeleton staff in the yard. So that was what happened. But they all turned up for mass anyway, including Paul Carberry. But there was no pressure on them to go to mass, but they just went anyway.
New approach in front now from Rio de la Plata on the near side, inside the last 150 yards. There's no stopping the Cool Cullen team. It's another big one for Jim Bolger and Kevin Manny. New approach keeps his unbeaten record. New approach, multi-dimensional Moores Wells traffic guard putting in an effort on the outside, but it's new approach from traffic guard as they race up towards the finish. It's new approach and Kevin Manning is going to win the Tattersalls Millions Champion Stakes by less than a length.
And in 2008, New Approach wins the Epsom Derby. Did you have a little wry smile on your face after that race? Had you just taken the mick out of all of us? Tell us, Jim. Tell us the truth.
No, the truth is, as was told at the time, you're asking me now to go back 3 or 4 years, whatever it was, but no, everything that I said at that time was on the level. And there was nothing added, nothing taken away. And it was a late decision.
So the horse originally was going to run in the 2 Guineas in the Irish Derby.
That was it.
You left him in the Derby, you said by mistake.
Yes, yeah, I didn't do the forfeit.
Yeah.
Or I missed it.
And then you said he...
It was fortuitous.
Yeah. And then he won the Derby.
Yes.
Did you smile at all in the press conferences, though? Did you... Because I'm thinking...
I enjoyed the press conference because there were 3 or 4 journalists who were seemed to be very irate about it. And but I think they've gotten over it since.
But the reason I say I think there might have been a little smile on your face is because although you're non-drinking and non-smoking and a deeply religious man, not that that would affect your sense of humour, but there's a little bit of a mischievous nature about you, isn't there? There is, isn't there? You...
No, not really. I was amused at the indignity, I'm not sure if that's the right word or not, on the part of certain journalists. But, you know, it was no more than amusement on my part.
Are you an entrepreneur who became a trainer or a trainer who was an entrepreneur?
I don't think I was ever an entrepreneur. I mean, it's been well documented that when I started training, my only ambition was that I'd be able to support my family in the business. I didn't want to go back to work in an office or anything like that. And so my sole ambition was to succeed to a level where I could stay in business.
But Jim, not everyone can go from working in an office to doing what you did. How did you manage that process?
Well,
this is back in the late, what, 70s?
76, yeah. I wouldn't say that it was all that difficult. I did have to work hard. I worked about 18 hours a day. And I was very fortunate in the beginning anyway that the handful of horses that I started out with, they all won races. And things began to happen fairly quickly. I got my licence in the mid-76. And I had 4 winners, including an away double. The same year I had a winner at the Curran, another winner at Clonmel. And the following year then I had 18 horses throughout the year. And we had 22 winners. And the year after that I think it was 32. And then it went to 44. And it kept on the increase then up to 1985 when we had a virus, and I think we dropped back to about 40 winners. And then it picked up from there again and has kept going reasonably well since then.
In '79, though, when the Pope came along, racing ended in, what was it, Phoenix Park?
Yes.
And you moved. I mean, first of all, how did you even find the place that you're at now? I mean, it's not somewhere that you stumble on.
I was told by a friend of mine that it was for sale, and he thought maybe I should have a look at it. And we had a bad day at the Curragh one day, no winner, and it was the middle of the summer of 81. And Jackie and I drove down. We had difficulty finding the place, but eventually we found it anyway. And I drove in the avenue, we drove in the avenue, and I said to Jackie, I said, I don't care whether this suits or not. I said, we'll buy it. Because at that stage we'd looked at 42 places. This was the 42nd. So anyway, we had a look at the house first, and all was well there, even though it was built in 1760. It was in good condition. And then I went out to see if I could accommodate the gallop with an uphill climb on it. And we just about managed to do that.
How would you describe your training methods? We'll come on to science in a minute, but away from science, the training of a racehorse, you're known for having a very stiff climb of a gallop.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't be all that much different to the way most people train them, but, you know, there are various ways that trainers can use their gallops, and the main thing is to get to know the gallops and to get to know what works on them. And then what works best, that's what you do. And even when things get a little bit slack and you're not having the winners, don't change anything. You know, stick with it. It'll come back again, you know. So, no, I don't think I do things very differently to most trainers, except that I'd be big into fitness. And I think we won a lot of races in the early years by having a fitness edge. But between Martin Pipe and myself here in Ireland, I think things levelled out, and fitness-wise, other trainers got into that as well. And the fitness edge is long gone now. Most trainers have their horses very fit, and it doesn't give you an edge nowadays, but you need to have them fit to win races.
Being pressed by Saburo on the outside. Highland Falcon moves into third inside the last 150 yards now, and stops with Saburo running on the outside as they run up towards the finish. And Saburo and Kevin Manning is going to win the opening two-year-old race for the third year in a row for Jim Bolger. And racing now inside the last 200 on the far side, Master Speaker, Caesarea right on the near rail. They're a couple of lengths cleared of Late Rosebud, and racing inside the last 150 now. Master Speaker repressed by Caesarea, head to head as they go to the line. Caesarea on the near side. Kevin Manning and Master Speaker Joseph O'Brien put it up to the judge. Wren's Nest in the lead now from Yellow Rosebud as they run up towards the final 150. Wren's Nest on the far side from Yellow Rosebud. The stand side, they're racing up towards the finish, and Wren's Nest going to be another one for Jim Bolger. 3 so far. Alpinist Lake District, P.A. Mondrian in between them, and they're followed by Silver Lightning, and now on the near side, Alpinist and Kevin Manning just getting the better of in second place Lake District, but running on strongly is Silver Lightning as they run up to the finish, and Alpinist and Kevin Manning just going to last it out. A big four-timer for Kevin Manning and Jim Bolger.
You say it doesn't give you an edge, but I would say to you, Jim, it clearly does. You only have to look at the start of the Irish flat season in 2013 to show that.
Yeah, but that doesn't happen every year. It just might be that some of my competitors are a little bit slower out of the blocks this year. But
so you were fitter?
They'll possibly, but, you know, they'll catch up, and maybe next year we'll be back to where we have been in previous years.
We sort of pandered around your methods, and obviously you're not going to give me every secret, are you? No, probably not, in this conversation.
There are no secrets, I mean.
Well, there'll be something you do, Jim, that's different. I mean, presumably what you're saying is, like Martin, Martin's got quite a stiff climb at Pond House, interval training, But on the fitness side, Martin's got his laboratory and all the blood testing. I mean, is that the kind of thing you're into as well?
Well, Martin came here to see our setup, and I think he was impressed with what he saw at the time.
You're not telling me Pipe stole all your ideas?
Well, I had a lab before he had one. So anyway, yeah, it's a big help. The only reason that we established our own lab was because you could send away a blood sample and you wouldn't have a result for 2 days. And now we can have a result in a little more than 2 minutes. So obviously it was the right thing to do. So we did that back in 1985. And, you know, we have a bank of information now that was built up over the years. One thing that became very obvious to us in the early days was that if a horse's PCV was less than 35, he was unlikely to win. So, you know, for the last...
PCV?
Pack cell volume, it's the oxygen carrying capacity of the blood.
I'm pleased I asked that, because I had no idea what PCV is.
Well, I'd say yours is normal, you look good. You don't... Well, we weren't winning any races with horses with a PCV less than 35, so, you know, for the last 20 years or so, we don't run them then. You know, they have to be over 35.
You would never want...
so that was one of the biggest things. So you pick up infection then as well. But the blood sample is not the be-all and the end-all. Sometimes you mightn't be 100% happy with it and you take a chance and everything works. But it's a fair indicator.
You're big into genetics, and it appears that you've discovered that a CC type of horse will be a sprinter, a CT will be a middle distance horse, and a TT is likely to be a horse with who wants a test of stamina. Have you trained winners simply by using genetics?
I couldn't say I've trained specific winners, but I use it more for breeding than I do for training. And the CC type, you'd be more correct to call it sprinter miler. And if you get one with a really good temperament that switches off and sort of just is prepared to just lob around, say, mid-pack or wherever, and he's taking nothing out of himself, there's always a chance that a horse like that could still stay a mile and a half in spite of the fact that he's a CC. But generally the CC types will be your first 2-year-old runners of the season, and they'll be more rounded and they'll mature quicker than either the CTs or the TTs. And for me, the ones that you do not want too badly, but you will get them more or less by accident with the breeding process, are the TTs, because they're more backward and a lower percentage of them achieve anything worthwhile on the flat than either the CCs or the CTs. So when I'm breeding horses, I aim not to have too many TTs. So since I started, became aware of the fact that there are such things as CCs, CTs and TTs, we've reduced our TT in our population from about 25% down to about, I think it's no more than about 5% at the moment. And that is making a difference.
As I've already said, you're not just a trainer, but you're now an owner-breeder trainer, and there aren't many of those in the business at your level. But it hasn't always been simply a success. Anyone who was born into racing now or growing up now would just think Bolger, I mean, a magician. But you were very much into Last Tycoon in the early days, and that didn't work at all, did it, really?
Well, that'll always happen. I mean, hopefully, in my case, not too often, but there are times when a breeder or an owner will take a view on a stallion and not get it right, and in that case I didn't get it right.
What made you love Galileo so much, other than the fact obviously he was a brilliant horse, or was it a certain amount of luck?
No, the first day I saw him at Leopardstown I was really impressed with him. As a 2-year-old, I think he probably won by 6 or 8 lengths on the bridle. And then to see his performances as a 3-year-old. And I used to meet Michael Kinnan, you know, fairly regularly, either at the races or in Kevin and Una's house. And, you know,
Kevin Manning, who's stable jockeying, and Una, who's your daughter.
Yeah. And I quizzed Michael on the horses that he was riding. You know, trying to figure out what I might use when they'd go to stud. And I'd say of all the horses in Ballydoyle, he was the horse that he was most keen on. And I loved the horse myself, so I thought between the two of us I wouldn't be wrong. So it appeared first that in his first year, I think the only half-decent horse he had in the first crop was Heliostatic that I had. And he was a little bit difficult and temperamental. But I felt that if I could breed one with a good temperament, that I'd probably have a good racehorse. So it began to happen then after that. I got Teofilo and Soldier of Fortune. Actually, both of those were reared together. So, you know, I felt when they were yearlings, they always looked the part. But being as poor as I am, when John Magner came looking, I sold Soldier of Fortune. But I got a good price for him, and I had no regrets about it.
And it is Finchgale Bio who hits the front. Now on the outside, Dementicata putting in a late surge. It's Finchgale Bio in front, Dementicata towards the near side, but running up towards the line. She's got it to size. Finchgale Bio is another one to complete the Guineas double. Beats Dementicata, beat Corn.
Finchgale Bio adds the Irish 1,000 guineas to a victory at Newmarket.
And Alexander Goldrun and Kevin Manning a last to first. Brilliant win for Alexander Goldrun.
Digging in, Lash Lashes is seeing it out stronger on the run to the line, and another big race for Jim Bolger. Lash Lashes stretching away to win the coronation, and a famous double on the day for Kevin Manning.
Jim Bolger had a huge influence in my career. I learned an awful lot from him, basically about doing things the right way, and that was it. You only did them the wrong way once, that was for sure with Jim. He was very much a perfectionist in everything he did. And it was a great place to learn, you know. I learned an awful lot about race riding, about conducting myself, about talking to people, about being tidy, and lots of things. He's an exceptionally good judge of a horse. You know, he doesn't need to see it running up in front of him, running faster than the one beside it to know that whether it's any good or not. That was one of the things I did notice from my early years there. He was able to tell me that one 2-year-old was better than another when I was riding the both of them for 6 months.
I thoroughly enjoyed it up there. It's normal young fellas. Like, I mean, the day I started, 5 other guys started with me. 4 of them dropped out after 1 day. You know, so it was a very fair, tough place to work, hard place to work, very disciplined. But I was just proud to have been there, and I just think he's a great man, and I'm proud to be associated with him.
Likes you to do things right, but he's very fair. Taught me an awful lot of life skills now, so I did during my time up there. There's no doubting that I wouldn't change things. If I was starting all over again, I'd definitely go back to him. He gave me a great start. I think in my first 7 rides in the flat, put me on nearly 5 winners, I think it was. So couldn't have asked for any more there now. And, you know, he learned me an awful lot sitting on good horses when, like Teofilo, New Approach and Lush Lashes, all them were up there at that time. Just being around them horses was a great experience.
You're not just, though, a trainer of top racehorses. You're the producer of top racing people. You know them better than me, but not all our viewers will. Peter Scudamore, Paul Carberry, the Nolans, Watchman, Aidan O'Brien, Tony McCoy, and now, most recently, Danny Mullins, who was a Grade 1 winner at Punchestown. What's the secret there, Jim? Does it go back to the start of our conversation that you just make them see what's the difference between right and wrong?
You missed one there, Kevin Manning, who was champion apprentice twice. And he's now...
I was slightly taking your stable jockey for granted.
A top jockey. I don't have any secret in that regard. They come in there and I kind of ignore them for some time and let them find their feet. And
how do you ignore a Carberry?
That was easy enough. He was very meek and mild when he came, and he remained that way throughout. You wouldn't know he was in the yard, really. But he was the untidiest rider in all of the lads who were riding out for me at the time. So when I told him about putting his toe in the iron, flat back, face on the mane, he wasn't too impressed with it. And he ended up the most stylish rider on the racetrack. So that's about all I'd take credit for with him, that he got his style down here. He always had the will to win, and he always had the talent.
Paul, of all the jockeys in the world in your younger days, I can't imagine you and Jim Bolger hitting it off.
Yeah, strange combination, all right. Started my career off there. Had a good time. We would have been strict enough, man. Now, didn't get home many weekends, I suppose, but no, it was great. Plenty of, what would you say, good few other good riders there at the time, so I had to improve my riding the whole time. Good opportunity for me as well. I learned a lot on the flat there, and it's a great setup down there, and learned a good bit about flat racing, which I had no interest in flat racing at the time. It was just biding the time before I got a bit heavier to ride over jumps, but it was definitely an experience and stood to me in the end.
He's tamed a lot of people, but it doesn't look as though he managed to tame you.
No, I don't think so.
That desire to win, do you think you can't breed that into someone?
Well, they have to be very bright and very smart, and they're all those people you mentioned.
I might rephrase that, actually. You can, it's bred into them, but you can't push it into them.
No, they're either smart young fellas or they're not, you know. And
did any of them surprise you? Did any of them do things that you know? Did you think when you first saw McCoy, oh, he's, I don't think he's going to be very good? Were any of them? Well, I answered that question before. It's like a mother with 10 children, and she's wondering what they're going to, what the best of them will end up doing, and like she could wonder, is any of them going to be an archbishop someday? But that would be very unlikely, and it's the same with the young fellas when you get them in. You don't really think at that stage, think about what they're going to be. And you try to encourage them along and get them to achieve to the very best of their ability. And of course, not all of them are able to control their weight and be jockey material. But the ones that are, they have to be, pretty bright, be able to make quick decisions, have the talent and the balance and everything that goes with making a top jockey. So they have to have all that. And I don't think no trainer can do a lot about that, but then he can give them the opportunities. And when they're ready for the opportunities, that's when, if the homework has been done, and when they get a chance that they can achieve then fairly quickly. But having said that, Pat Edry, I think, had 80 rides before he rode a winner, and he didn't end up too badly. Yep. So sometimes it's something that they can learn as they go along, but he would always have had that bit of brightness and smartness about him, and probably just wasn't put on the right horses to get his first winner. But
he fairly made up for it afterwards.
Teofilo goes for home now, followed by Holy Roman Emperor in second. They're inside the last 200, and Teofilo's a couple of lengths in front. Holy Roman Emperor has a battle on. He's got 2.5 lengths to make up. Teofilo's going to keep his unbeaten record in tremendous style for Kevin Manning and Jim Bolger. Holy Roman Emperor second.
At the time when Teofilo was injured, because of course he was unbeaten 2-year-old, but then favourite for the 2,000 Guineas, never made the track, has now become already a very useful stallion in his own right. But when he got injured, are you the kind of man who would have, you know, walked around the house in a strop and just absolutely in bits over that?
No, I mean, if you sat down to lunch with me on the day that he was injured, you wouldn't know that I had any problem if I didn't tell you. So that wouldn't upset me too much. These things happen. As long as you have horses, you'll have problems. And you know, 35 years is a long time to be doing anything. So if I can't cope with that sort of thing after 35 years, maybe I should try and retrain as a chef or whatever.
It has been quite a long time, and that means, of course, you've had good winners, and lots of them going back a long way. I mean, I remember horses like Erin's Isle when I was growing up was one of my favourite horses, although probably not the best you've ever trained. But if you could give us a quick flavour of the horses you've got the most pleasure out of, from the likes of Jet Ski Lady, who was brilliant. What are the ones you love the most that you've trained?
Well, obviously the very early ones that won the big races. I got great satisfaction out of them, and I would have been riding them out myself as well at the time, and I'd be that bit closer to them than I would be nowadays. But Condessa was a big one, because the man who owned her came to me some years after I first met him. I bought a house from him, so he was a builder, and he came back to me about 15 years later, and he said to me that he was thinking of retiring and could I buy him a horse. So I asked him, did he want a flat one or a jumper, and he said, I'll leave that to you. So I bought Condessa for 13,000, and she won a couple of races as a 2-year-old, including a big nursery at Gorham Park, or at least it was a big nursery then. Seems to have fallen by the wayside now. It was known as the Waterford Glass. And the following year then she won a handicap in Clonmel. It was the only place I could get her run into her before the Lingfield Oaks trial. And she went to Lingfield. I think she finished second there, but when we were over there we said we might as well get value for the flight, and we went up to York about 4 days later, and she beat Glass Slipper in the Musidora. So I mean that was a huge day. Like, we'd beaten the 1,000 Guineas winner, trained by Henry Cecil, and I had bought her as well, for, as I said, for 13,000. And then we went back to York with her later in the year, and she won the Yorkshire Oaks. So
that was in 81, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was huge at the time. Yeah, and then following on from that, I had Erin's Isle before that, and a few other fairly useful horses. Erin's Isle would have been the second best 3-year-old in Ireland, around about 1980.
Yeah, about the same time as Condessa.
Vincent had Kings Lake at the time, and you'll remember the joust between Kings Lake and Tuagori Moo. So he was champion 3-year-old, and I think Erin's Isle would have been second to him, and he was second in the Ledger as well that same year. And then he was sold to America after that, and he won 7 or 8 Group 1s, Grade 1s out there for Charlie Whittingham. And then years later, when the Americans weren't using him at stud, I bought him back for $30,000. And he has left me the dam of Soldier of Fortune and 1 or 2 others that, mares by him that I still have, because he was the busted line. So, those early ones were the big ones. And then, maybe midway through, I had a filly, Nora Boo, and she, after a few runs, it wasn't happening, and then she began to improve. And she started off with 7 stone 7 in what used to be the upside down handicaps. and she won 13 races, and I think her last run, she won the Pretty Polly Stakes at the Curragh, which is now a Group 1. So she went all the way from 7 stone 7 in the lowest handicap that you could find to winning a group, what is now a Group 1. It was a Group 2 at that time. But unfortunately, she was a disastrous broodmare, but these things happen. So she would have been a real favourite. And there had been B. Parajojo then, of course, in the early days. She won 5 or 6 flat races for me. And she was the champion 3-year-old hurdler in Ireland. And she won what was then the Papermate Hurdle at Liverpool. That was my first big winner away. And she won. She'd been second in the Victor Ludorum, and she won the Papermate Hurdle at Liverpool. And I think she still holds the track record for 2 miles there, or she did up to a few years ago anyway.
And there have been so many great, Saint-Gervais, Park Express. I mean, Saint-Gervais, you know, when he was on his day, he was as good as anything probably you've ever had.
Yeah, well, all he needed on his day was fast ground and going right-handed. And I think he was unbeatable doing that. And now since the international handicaps have been revised and they have him in his proper place, I think he's the 7th or 8th top horse in the list. You know, up there, not far away from Seabird and Rebo and all those sort of horses. So I always felt that he was the best Irish Derby winner of all time. Even put on a better show than even Nijinsky. So, and that's where he's rated now, and I think that's where he fits. Like, he was never out of a canter winning the King George. And the horse he beat won the Japan Cup and came back and won the King George the following year. So, you know, it was a really top performance.